let's get started with our next presentation. And this presentation has a very, very intriguing topic. It is the 10 things you don't get taught in an architecture school. So let's find out what it is from our very own speaker, Abha Narain Lamba, from the Abha Narain Lamba Associates, Mumbai. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome on stage Abha.
All right. First, sites don't often have loos. Some don't even have electricity, water, cell phone connectivity, or water for a bath. And I didn't realize this until 2005. And for all you architects who do amazing interior projects that cost 80,000 rupees a square foot, etc., this project is up in Ladakh. It's in a remote village called Basgo. And the entire project cost, after putting in 3 years of my life, and working in summer, which is the season from May to October, because after that the temperatures went down to minus 20 degrees. This village had no electricity, no running water, no loos. So we had something called a Ladakhi loo, which basically meant that you lived in the community space, in the village community house, and you walked up to the first floor, you went into a room, there was a hole in it, and sometimes if you weren't lucky, there was a dog looking up. So, so we basically, great facilities, and after 3 years, the total project cost was 15 lakh rupees. So you can imagine on a grand percentage fee how much money that made. But it was a beautiful landscape, and you can see just before we started this project, this was the temple of the Maitreya Buddha, a 15th century temple in Basgo. And the whole idea was that before they started work on it, there was this beautiful puja, and the Rinpoche came, and you can see a picture of the Rinpoche holding up silk fabric, and they took the spirit of the Buddha into that silk fabric and wrapped it around a mirror, which basically meant that they had deconsecrated the idol, and the idol of the Buddha was 3 floors high. And then it was safe for the labor to walk in, and on this project, I was the only qualified person, as in the only one who'd studied beyond class 7. Because there was no contractor, there was no civil engineer, there was nobody except the fact that this belonged to the local villagers, and this is what it looked like on a normal day. You could only walk up this climb, and to get material up the hill, the villagers would make human chains and bring up a block of mud through a human chain. So for some strange reason, they couldn't find an architect who was willing to work on this project. I don't think it's very strange, but when you're told the project cost is 15 lakhs and it means you walk and freeze your ass in minus 20 degrees, I don't think you get too many architects. So this was my team, which was really a bunch of the local memes. The king of Ladakh, who's this one, and we actually made him do things like, he was the only one who would get to live in Leh, but when we got to know he was coming, we would send a message down to him saying, please thoda sa sabun leke aana, please thoda sa canned apricot jam leke aana, ya thoda kuch bakar khani Leh market se leke aana, because we got absolutely nothing except whatever boiled rice and vegetables we could muster. So my best record for going without a bath is 7 days. Anyone who's crossed that, please raise your hand. You have. Good for you. That's something one doesn't normally get taught at architecture school. Second, you sometimes landing up learning more from the craftsman and laborer than qualified specialists and engineers and project managers. So here, we realized when I started the project that there had been an architect before me. He had developed some eye problem and it couldn't come up. There was a structural engineer who'd suggested that the entire roof be removed. You put steel girders and retrofit the whole building in steel, and that's how you restore a 15th century temple. And my first question was that if we did that, and after 7 years, if the local villagers needed to repair or maintain the structure, would they even know how? And for the 4 visits, the initial 4 visits that I made, my engineer who was in Delhi, who I shall not name, could never come up to site. So for the first 2 months when he didn't come up to site, I just told him not to bother, and I decided instead that we'll try and use the local craftsman. So we dug a 4-inch hole, the mud terrace, and we actually found that there was 2 feet of mud, because it was an old mud terracing, but every few years, whenever the local villagers would just throw mud as a waterproofing material. So it had just increased in bulk and was overloading the structure. So the whole roof was caving in. But while the engineer had suggested first a geomembrane and then some sort of waterproofing membrane for the roof, when we dug that little drill, like a test hole, I found at the bottom there was Bhojpatra. And the beauty of Bhojpatra is that it does not grow in Ladakh. It grows in the valley, in the Kashmir valley, which means that in the 15th century, the monks would have got the Bhojpatra, which is the bark of the birch tree on which manuscripts are written, and they would have got it from the Kashmir valley, transported it to Ladakh, and used that as the waterproofing material. The trouble is, we were working in 2004, and 2004 was the height of terrorism in Kashmir. And there were 2 problems. One is, how do you get birch bark from Khilanmarg, where it grows? And secondly, it's a protected species under Jammu Kashmir government. So when I wrote to the Chief Secretary requesting that, sir, we need birch bark, this is a historical monument of the state, he wrote back saying, this is a protected species, but since this is a monument, you can collect the birch bark that falls to the ground, but you cannot fell a tree. And no Ladakhi was willing to go to the Kashmir Valley for the collection. So we put out an ad, looked at different architecture colleges, looking for a Kashmiri Muslim boy who was willing to intern on the project. We found one guy called Mudassir, and we tempted him with like the best recos ever. You will get a Charles Wallace Fellowship to go to England the very next year. And this chap, Mubashir, went for that one season of collection, found the birch bark, collected it, then it seasoned over one winter in Ladakh so that we got rid of all the moisture, and the next year we used that as the waterproofing. And this year we completed 10 years of the project without it leaking. But what that project taught me is that I learned more from the local memes, because for every combination, like for every specification of mud plaster, there were 5 different types of local mud. So there was Zasa, there was Markhala, there were 4 other types. And it was these old men who belonged to the village who would tell me, nahin, Markhala end mein lagao, Zasa ko thoda iske saath mix karo. And for the first year, I just learned. So we tried out different plaster samples, we tried out different mixes. The next year is when we took on the first roof, which was not the important roof. And it was only in the 3rd year that we actually took up the central hall. It's all local contractors. We jacked up each kaju or the bracket, put in the new member, put it back again, and this temple was restored. So that's something, again, taught at architecture school. 3, death-defying stunts, site safety. So all those who are into heavy security, safety protocols, site management, project management, I'm so sorry, but this is how it goes here. This is the Bombay High Court, and this was my first project when I moved to Mumbai in 1997. And I worked with a team, a larger team called the Bombay Collaborative, to come up with a conservation master plan for the Bombay High Court. If you go back, right at the top, there is, you see that? No. These are 2 statues of justice and liberty at 170 feet. And the trouble with these statues is, if you looked closely, they were made of Porbandar limestone, which is calcium carbonate. And in the very heavy monsoons, there was efflorescence. And what was happening is that the seaward side of the statues was still intact, but the leeward side had totally caved in. So they were even structurally unsafe because the back had been corroded away, and at any point they would have fallen. And over the years, the Public Works Department just kept cement grouting it in the hope that it wouldn't fall. And now the cement had actually become deeper and deeper and a thicker layer, and it was not sustainable. So what what the Public Works Department had worked out as the philosophy of repair was to acid wash the limestone statues and then cement grout it. So I tried to explain to the engineers that chemically you've got calcium carbonate and then you add acid to it. And what do you get? Anyone remember chemistry? You get carbon dioxide. You don't get anything. And so I told them that you cannot acid wash this, so please use another method. And the lowest engineer, not the sectional engineer, the assistant engineer said, "Madam, मेरे पास 800 रुपए है जो कि मेरे jurisdiction में है. आप 800 रुपए में कुछ कर सकते हो तो मुझे बताओ." So out of 800 rupees, we bought a plastic bucket, 2 mugs, blotting paper, and we created just a basic paper poultice, tried it on one of the lower statuary of the monkeys, kept the paper poultice on for 2 days, removed the paper poultice, and were able to demonstrate that you're able to clean that limestone without using an acid, and it could be very cheap, and it could be something that doesn't damage the stone. So I was about 27 years old. I was non-Maharashtrian, non-Marathi speaking, and Mr. Sawant looked at me and said, "मैडम ऐसा करो, हमने परांच बांध दिया है, आप ज़रा चढ़ के ऊपर दिखाओ कैसे करने का है." So for him, that was my test of whether I was serious about my work. And one thing it taught me, there was no harness, there were no helmets, there were no safety belts. And one thing it taught me was never use shoes when you're walking up a bamboo scaffold. So you have to go nange pao, and the beauty was that it would sway in the breeze because it's west facing, and the bamboo scaffold would actually take that and actually sway. So it was initially scary, but then fun. This is a photograph of mine right on top of the scaffold to prove I was there. And eventually we managed to do the poultice and managed to do the lime plaster work and the sacrificial plaster. And this is what it looks like today. It's almost 20 years since. The stone has weathered back. It doesn't look pure white, and the lime plaster merges with the stone, but it's not always safe. 4, infrastructure projects and traffic projects are not always boring. All my life, my brain would switch off at SPA when anyone would start teaching traffic and planning. And I remember a whole season, and Munish would hold witness to it. At Chanakya, there was, on Mondays, there used to be a James Bond festival. And our entire class would bunk Mondays and sit at the James Bond festival at Chanakya, followed by a big boy burger each. And we would never attend the traffic classes. But this is a project that we're currently working on, and to me today it's the most exciting project that I've ever worked on. This is the Jaipur Underground Metro, which is an underground metro line under the walled city. And when this idea was floated by the government of Rajasthan that they're going to dig a metro underground under the walled city, the city was up in arms, and the press had a field day. They said that, you know, the chief minister has gone crazy and the government has gone crazy because you have a city which is old historic structures, you're tunneling underneath, they're not safe, and the stratum is what? Sand, and everything is going to cave in. So the minute you start digging from Chandpol and you start your tunnel boring machine, so this is outside the city walls, and this was the tunnel boring machine, and this was supposed to go under Chandpol, which barely had a foundation. So if there was any amount of vibration, the entire gate would have collapsed. So the press went crazy saying this is a bizarre idea. But if you see on the right side, the kind of traffic that you have, it's because of this traffic that you're killing the city. Because of the vehicular congestion, people have stopped going to the walled city. So people avoid the walled city. That has an economic impact on the city. And it's basically a bad cycle you can't break out of. So the whole idea of an underground metro is to pedestrianize a walled city. And unless you're able to take a metro and get out into the walled city, you would not, you'd choke up the walled city and you'd leave it out of your tourism circuit. So this is Choti Chopad and Badi Chopad, the two big squares. And the Jaipur Metro was supposed to dig underneath these and put those stations, because there's no open space in this very dense urban fabric, and you were supposed to come out at the station at the Choti Chopper and the Badi Chopper, and right in the center of this was this very sarkari municipal tank sort of a thing with fountains that never worked and painted blue. That's typical to all our cities. They appointed us, this is an ADB project, and I was appointed as we were the structural as well as heritage consultants. So our job was initially to monitor every historic building down this path to make sure that we've done a risk assessment, so when the tunnel boring machine comes through, the buildings don't collapse. So before this happened, before the digging started, we did a very thorough audit of every building, what were the vulnerabilities, what were the structural problems, and also just make sure that there was a 24-hour monitoring cycle, and we set a level of safety which was way stricter than international safety standards, so that even if there was like a 1 mm deflection, it would send out alarm bells to the whole team, and everyone from the Chief Minister's office downwards would be told about it. But then I started looking at old photographs, and this is an 1870 photograph by Raja Deen Dayal of Jaipur, of the same area. And if you see this, there was no municipal tank. And if you look closely, there seems to be a kund. So I said, what if there's a kund, which means there's a step well and you actually are going lower, and our train station was supposed to be just below ground. So if there was a possibility that there still is a kund inside, the station is going to just completely tunnel through that and kill it. So we went back to the Chief Minister, Mrs. Vasundhara Raje, and we said, ma'am, there's a slight hitch. There might be a possibility that there was a kund there. So we either tunnel right through the kund, which we do not recommend, or we completely change our designs, take the station at least 6 meters below where it was originally designed and save the kund. And it would mean a 6-month time lag. And she didn't bat an eyelid, and she said, save every stone, and you can go ahead with what you want to do. We started an archaeological exercise. We appointed 3 Archaeological Survey of India retired archaeologists to be there. Every bit of stone was carefully sifted and sieved, and we treated this like a complete archaeological site in the center of the city. And we found the kund. We found the steps. We found the old central fountain. And then we numbered every stone, and this was a beauty. We found all the original marble gaumukhs from where water would have originally spouted out. So each one of these was photographed and numbered and has now been moved to the Albert Hall Museum. And now every stone piece, once it's been documented, has been moved to a safe site. The tunneling has happened, and when we put back the station, you would actually walk out into this kund. So all this, the whole idea would be that you would get out of your metro station, walk into the center of the city, you'd be able to pedestrianize it at night, and just turn this into an amphitheater in the heart of the city. 5, architects sometimes need to double up as activists. Kala Ghoda is is Bombay, where I've worked for the last 20 years. And this area is one of the most important historic precincts of the city, but there was no money in 98, 99, 2000 for the restoration of the buildings. So a bunch of us, actually 6 people, met for tea with an old Parsi gentleman called Mr. Shahrukh Sabawala. And he was a director of Tata Sons, and he was the grandson of Sir Kawasji Jahangir, the man who actually paid for the construction of Elphinstone College. And he called, there was Rahul Mehrotra, an urban designer, Shirin Barucha, a lawyer, Jamshid Kanga, a retired IS officer, and myself. And Mr. Sabawala said, every time I walk past this building, built by my grandfather, I hang my head in shame because the whole area is a mess. After 6 o'clock, all the offices close, and there are drug peddlers and there are pimps that hang out here. So can we do something about this area? We all put our heads together, and all we did was a little survey that mapped all the art galleries, including Jahangir Art Gallery, a couple down Rampart Row, the Prince of Wales Museum, and we found that there was 1 lakh square foot of existing gallery space in this area. All we did is to put it together. This is, again, 1998. So we said, what is a good time of the year in Bombay? We barely have 2 good seasons. So we said, okay, December, everybody is out to Goa. January, people are still reeling from the shock of their after parties. So let's pick the first fortnight of February. And we put together a little handmade, I'd literally sketched out 5 buildings and we made a little handmade card. And we made a calendar of all the existing functions or art events that were happening. We went to the government and we went to that time it was Shiv Sena, and we went to this minister and said, sir, we don't ask you for money. Just allow that for over 2 Saturdays and Sundays, you'll pedestrianize this car park. So there's this triangular car park, and we made sure that there was no traffic coming in. And we used every open space, whether it was a car park or a pavement or the back garden of a building, and turned that into an art space. And out of that, this was a free festival. We got Zakir Hussain to perform. 10,000 people came. We obviously made no money. But then we got HSBC to give us 5 lakh rupees. And then we went with that 5 lakh rupees to the Dorab Tata Trust and said, will you match us? So we got 5 and 5, 10 lakh rupees. And I'm sure most of you spend more on one bathroom interior, but we tried to take up this building, which is Elphinstone College. And we went to the government of Maharashtra and we said, this is your building. This is a building that has produced people like Bhimrao Ambedkar and Feroz Shah Mehta, and it's in such a mess. Allow us to restore your facade. So they said, how much money do you have? And we didn't tell them that we only had 10 lakh rupees. We said, that doesn't matter. Let's sign an MOU that we restore the facade and we give it back to you. But it improves the public realm of the area. So with 10 lakh rupees, we restored the building, just the facade. And today, Kala Ghoda as a festival has grown by leaps and bounds. There are like millions of people who come in there. There are heritage walks. We have rock festivals on the steps of the Asiatic Library. We have like amazing things that happen. And to this day, we don't take a penny from the government. We still operate on a no-ticket entry basis. And I think it works. So architects are not always, you don't always get sort of paid projects. So sometimes you can do a bathroom or one jacuzzi or maybe one fitting for 6 lakhs, and sometimes you can start an urban conservation movement. This is Horniman Circle. This is a neoclassical circle in Mumbai that predates the design of Connaught Place by half a century. So 50 years before Connaught Place was designed, Horniman Circle was built. And this is what it looked like, because most of these buildings are rent controlled. So you have someone paying 500 rupees for the rent controlled office, and actually the onus of responsibility for maintaining the building, best landlord, he's not interested, so they generally go into disrepair. Again, a bunch of the local citizens got together and said, let's do something about it. We realized that we were within walking distance of the Reserve Bank of India, and there were 33 banks within a 2-kilometer circuit. So we asked the governor of the Reserve Bank of India to call for a meeting of all the banks. They invited 33 banks, about 20 of them landed up, and we said, we want to start something called the Banking District Association, and if you all give 1 lakh rupees each, we'll get 33 lakhs, and that'll become our corpus, and we'll improve Horniman Circle. They were absolute conjuices even before demonetization. We only got 6 banks becoming members. We got 6 lakh rupees, and we took up the worst case building. This is the Botawala building, and we just cleaned the facade. So we didn't have money to change the air conditioners, we didn't have money for anything else. But what we did is that these are the most beautiful codestone terracotta carved sculptures that you get as the keystones in this building, and they were all imported from England. And none of them were really visible because of the signage. And because we were putting our money into the facade, we got the shopkeepers to agree that the signage design would be as per our design. So we got them to put this in that little box, and this is 1998. This is way before other signages happened. So it was not fancy, it was just marine ply and then anything else. But today, this whole area has gotten gentrified. And you have Hermès, you have Christian Louboutin, you have every fine store that's coming up. And today, each one of them is spending millions of dollars into this area. So it started with 6 lakh rupees. And I think a Christian Louboutin shoe probably costs more than that. But it's been great fun working on this project. 7. There's not always just the one client. Last night, there was this whole award ceremony at the Imperial. And they were celebrating, patrons of architecture who put in so much money. Unfortunately for me, it's now been 22 years and counting. I'm still waiting for that one client who says, money, no problem. Because for each of the projects, it's been like, please, we need money. So this is Dadabhai Nauroji Road. It's the busiest pedestrian artery. You have 2 million people who alight from VT to go to Fort every day. So you have at least 2 million pedestrian walkers on this street. In about 10 years ago, this is what it looked like because you had shop fronts, hoardings, it's a commercial area, it's like the Chandni Chowk of Bombay. And I got a grant from the Mumbai Metropolitan Development Authority to create street furniture designs for this and a streetscaping handbook. So we documented every building, looked at the shop fronts, designed shop front guidelines. And then I realized that you had these huge hoardings and huge shop fronts where you just couldn't see any architectural feature. So what I did was present my design, showed it to the municipal commissioner. He said, very good, madam, and did nothing about it. After 1 year, I again went to the new municipal commissioner. He went off to sleep on my 6th slide. And that's when I told myself, I will never work with the top guy ever. So I went to the bottom of the ring. So I went to the municipal corporation office and to the local ward officer, who's the lowest officer in that whole food chain. And there was a gentleman called Kiran Acharekar. I went up to him, I showed him my report, I showed him the elevation drawings, and I said, can we do something? So he said, madam, मैं सबको पहले दफ्तर में बुलाता हूँ. So he made a cyclo-style letter calling all the shopkeepers to the BMC ward office and sent it out to about 70 shopkeepers. 70 shopkeepers landed up, and all I had was, there were overhead projectors in those days, not even like amazing things, and on an overhead projector, I would show them like, this is the design today, this is how it could look, all you need to do is remove your signboard. Then one chap stood up from UCO Bank and he said, मैं promise करता हूँ कि दिवाली तक we will clean up our signboard. Then another gentleman from Lawrence Mayo got up and voluntarily did that. And finally, we had about 20 shopkeepers who said, we will clean up our signboards before Diwali. It took not 1 penny of money from the municipal corporation, but McDonald's, which was one of the biggest fellows, refused to do anything. They didn't take our calls, they didn't come for the meetings. So we would go to them, I would go to them every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, go to every shop and tell them, aap thoda left kar do apna signage, aap thoda right kar do. McDonald's, we actually took pictures of Bond Street, McDonald's in Greece, and saying, you have a tiny M that's barely visible, and just because you think we're a third world country, you can get away with it. So we finally shamed them, not voluntarily, into putting this, and we'd never seen these arches. And one by one, the shops started shifting their signboards, realigning their design, and you could actually begin to see buildings that you'd never thought existed. Then I designed street furniture in cast iron, but rather than the government paying for the street furniture, which then gets stolen, we got every shopkeeper to pay for the cobblestone, the cast iron litter bin, and the cast iron railing in front of his building. So since every shopkeeper, whether it was a small Valiji's luggage or it was a large Thomas Cook, had paid for that, there's a sense of ownership. The problem with me was, for that project, I had about 250 clients, and that can be quite a disaster. But it worked. Number 8, the most difficult thing that was never taught is how to do rate analysis for government projects. And I wish you're taught that, because this is completely crazy. This is the Convocation Hall of the Bombay University, 2005. I was asked to work on this project. This is what it looked like. And we found that there was gold leaf gilding. It took me 600 pages to write to the Public Works Department to explain the process of gold leaf gilding, what is the purity of gilding, kitni bari alsi ka tel lagaoge, kitni bari oil lagaoge, kitni bari burnish karoge, how much of labor is used. And it took us more time to get the rate analyses approved than actually to restore this project. We managed to complete it within a year, and it was reopened for the 150th anniversary of the university. And then it won a UNESCO award. 9. And that's happening to me as I grow older. My clients have started calling me auntie. This is a project in the Fort area. This is an unlisted building that you see to your left. It was not a listed building, and there was a young, bright industrialist's daughter called Tarini Jindal, who had started a design store, and this is the year 2007 or 2008. And she wanted to knock down the building. She had got a crack architect to design a very deconstructivist sort of modern facade, and this was supposed to be a boutique store. The trouble happened when she told her mother about it, and Sangeeta Jindal said, "No, but isn't this in the fort area?" And she said, "Yes, Mama, but it's not listed, so I can knock it down." She said, "No, you call Abha right now and ask her to do the project." So I had Tarini saying, "Auntie Abha, I've been asked by my mother that you do this project," and she was so unhappy because she clearly didn't want me. But as we started working on this project, we found out that this building was actually one of the older buildings, because it even had the pre-British bricks. And this had an automobile repair workshop on the ground floor, and rent-controlled apartments on top. And I just have a problem with rolling shutters, because I think rolling shutters are one of the sun mica and rolling shutters and Alucobond are the three things that have killed Indian architecture. We have old buildings, old shops in Chandni Chowk, we have old shops in Girgaon in Bombay, but none of them use rolling shutters. So we just got rid of the rolling shutters and put the old slide folding shutters that are true to all old shops in Bombay. They might not be louvered, but they're all folding. So this is what the building looked like. It opened as a design store, and that was in 2007. And today this has become Bombay's fashion mile. So you have Sabyasachi, you have Ritu, Kumar, you have basically all the great stores here. My last, that when you are in architecture school, you have no idea that your child is going to grow up on sites. So I'm going to leave you here. This is my daughter, This is my daughter, Ambika. And this is Bombay University, this is Chandramauleshwar Temple, this is Jaunpur, this is Hampi, and that's how she's grown. She's 3 inches taller than me now, but that's something they don't teach you at architecture school. Thank you.